Hello gamers and collectors, it's your boy Kentman bringing you that JRPG and fan service content you deserve. And today we finally get to talk about one of my favorite games of all time, and that is Final Fantasy VII in general. Like the remake trilogy, mostly what we're going to be talking about today, but just me gapping about Final Fantasy VII because I love it.
Who's he?
Hitman!
He's not important!
Okay. Not that you haven't heard about it at all recently, because there's been a lot of news coming out for part 3. A lot of people just talking about just the ever-growing story and development of 3, and it's just been, and then with the PC release of Rebirth has been making so many great numbers for the series. It's so great to see. And I just wanted to sit down and just talk about it for a little bit, because I love this game and I love this franchise. I've always loved this game. It was one of those games that I played when I was a kid, but mostly lived through from my cousin who played the game, and I watched it through him, and I watched him play the game all the way through, and it was a fantastic time. And then I eventually played the game for myself, which was like years ago. And then now with the remakes, I've been reliving the story in such a much grander scale. And I've been loving it. I've absolutely been loving it. Now, it's very hard for me because since it's been years since I played the original game, I don't remember everything that happened in the game. And I've been reliving my life with Final Fantasy VII Remake through the remake trilogy. And it's hard to really watch stuff without trying to be spoiled, because I want to live in the moment of the real life moments that they're happening. It's kind of hard for me to explain that. It's a 20-year-old game based off a remake of a 20-year-old game that's been out there forever, so I know it's not really spoiling, but it's spoiling to me because I want to relive the moments through nice animated cutscenes and gameplay and voice acting and stuff. So it's very hard to not be spoiled on part 3 of things that's happening, especially when there's some of my favorite creators are talking about it and they know so much about the series, and it's I can't hear, but I want to hear, but I can't hear about this, and it's so crazy. And recently there's been so many different interviews about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, how they finished the script for the story and they've been working on the development, that they want to try to get it out as soon as they can, maybe 2027 at the latest, but it's hard to say. But a lot of great things has been happening with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I want to, not Rebirth in general, but Final Fantasy VII in general, and I just, again, wanted to just sit down and talk about it, because I know I haven't been making videos on it as I should be, but it feels like because of the limitations of not trying to be spoiled, I haven't been making videos on it. But I feels like this is the right time to kind of just chime in and just talk about it in this safe moment of things that I think is going to happen and what I expect to happen, in part 3, especially because I play Ever Crisis, which is the mobile game. I expect to see a lot of scenes that was in Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis in Final Fantasy VII Part 3, the whole backstory of Sephiroth and when he was young and how he was helping Glenn Lumbrock and all of them with Lucia and Matt. Yes, when he was young, helping them with Ruben, and how he started to drift into his descent of being a villain and descent and being depressed and all this other stuff of being the ruler of the planet, as he'll say. And there is moments where it is connected to Final Fantasy VII, where we talked about previously, where Sephiroth is at the edge of creation and he's talking about, he's just staring into space like he knows something's going on, and the events that happened in Rebirth, there's some parts of time travel and Omni Aerith and Omni Sephiroth and all these things happening that is sometimes goes beyond my head of what I understand about Final Fantasy VII, and I'm just trying to keep up. And because I'm a fan of Tifa and Cloud, and I like seeing Zack back and all these other things, and I just want to know where the story is going. But now in Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, that you can play as Angeal, which has never been a thing in any Final Fantasy I've ever seen. And the fact that you could play as a young Angeal in this Ever Crisis Part 2 episode season plays a viable part within Final Fantasy, or it's going to be, because Angel does play a valuable part to the story, not directly to a lot of characters, but he is kind of a driving force, especially with the Buster Sword that's been carried on through 3 generations. You know, it started with him being made by his father, and then also him using and then giving it to Zack, and then Zack giving it to Cloud. So now it has like this whole history behind it. But also Angel is one of Sephiroth's best friends, and you know, Sephiroth had guilt with everything that happened with, you know, Angel and also Genesis eventually. And so there's all these things that's like, why would they make a young Angel playable for no reason? Like, maybe it's just a coincidence for the games itself, but it feels like they've been very careful with everything they've done with Final Fantasy VII up to this point. So it feels like it is planned. So maybe a young Angel is going to be playable in like the first part of Final Fantasy Part 3 remake. And if that's going to be insane, because to see a young Angel in a actual console game form, which would be crazy, but also just seeing different elements from this game in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. And I'm just wondering how they're going to tie it all together, because eventually it's already been stated that it's going to eventually play into Advent Children at some point. So I'm just so curious of how it's all going to intertwine. Like, Final Fantasy is one of those games, at least the remakes, that I've said so many times that it was such a beautiful experience playing that game, especially Rebirth, that everything about that game I loved, everything. And there were some things that were not all that well tuned, like in the Grand Canyon with the Chocobo flying, which was really annoying, and of course with Kate Sif and his dungeon, which was really annoying at times. But overall, I still had a fantastic time, and it's one of those games that I wish I could forget my memories so I can play it again, just so I can experience it again, because it was just that good of a game. And I just love the story, I love the characters, I love where it's going, and I can't wait to see what happens in Part 3 for all the things that is happening for Final Fantasy. And it's why you always see it prominently in the background, because it's one of those series that kind of started it off for me for gaming. It started with Sonic and Streets of Rage, and then the PlayStation happened, and then Final Fantasy happened. I saw my cousin playing and I was like, what is this game? Why does this girl have some big old titties? Even though I really wasn't thinking about that much all that time, but she did have some big ass titties back in the day, and she still does nowadays. And Cloud was cool, and all this other stuff that was happening, and now I know, and it's just like, man, it's so great. But yeah, I love Final Fantasy VII. It's one of my favorite franchises. Probably it is my favorite game of all time, and I'm so excited to see where it goes. And again, you know, this is just a simple fan just talking about one of his favorite games. It probably won't really be much for everyone else, but you know, it's one of those things. But either way, let me know how you guys feel about Part 3. Have you been in the true know-how of everything that what's going to happen? Have you tried to been avoiding spoilers? Are you playing Ever Crisis? Are you not playing Ever Crisis? Are you excited? What theories do you have that's not spoiler related? Because I'm being careful. But I would love to know how you guys feel about Final Fantasy VII in general in the comments down below. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I'm trying to hit 10K by the end of the year, and with your help and support, I could definitely do that. And with that being said, I will see you in the next video next time. Bye me.